Welcome in, everybody, to Inside the Burrow. It is getting close here to the first game of the Zach Kittley era, and with that being the case, no better time to bring on a special guest from the University of Maryland, inside the black and gold, an independent outlet covering the Terps. Ahmed Ghafir hopping on with us today. Ahmed, thanks for taking some time. How are you?
I'm doing well, Robbie. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course. So we were talking a little bit about it before, but for the FAU people at home, let us know a little bit about your outlet and kind of your connection with Maryland. Were you a student there? How did this whole thing come to be? And then it's a little bit about Inside the Black and Gold.
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated undergrad in 2014 from Maryland. I got an MBA from there as well. Inside the Black and Gold has been independent for 5 years now. We do a good job covering football and have grown it out into men's basketball, obviously recruiting. Have a lot more non-revenue coverage over this last year as well. So, we do a great job just covering everything Maryland. But obviously, as we'll talk about with football season coming up, it's that time of year where we dive into football and preview year 7 of Mike Locksley.
Yeah, we could go all day about basketball. I'm a huge college basketball fan, but all I'll say is, you need a break from basketball after everything that went down last offseason?
It's been I'll say this: it's been a long offseason, so I'm definitely ready for some real sports. But I would say the way that last basketball season ended, really how the season went and how it ended was quite deflating for many. So, but I think Buzz Williams has done a good job, really energizing, bringing his guys and really still embracing Maryland as a university. So I think there's a different level of excitement around the program now.
That's good to hear. FAU fans know well how a coaching change can be. So FAU fans, if you're not familiar, Google Kevin Willard. That's all you need to know. But anyway, sticking to football, because that's what we're here for. FAU ships up to Maryland on August 30th, year 7 of the Mike Locksley era, as Ahmed mentioned. What's the kind of vibe around the program? I've seen some things that have been hot seat related, some things that have said no hot seat for Coach Locksley here in year 7. So what's the expectations looking like, and what's the vibe like?
Yeah, I think, it all really sums back to, really goes back to last season. Prior to the 2024 season, Maryland was coming off 3 consecutive bowl appearances and then 2 bowl wins. And, that hadn't been done at the program in a long, long time. And I think that, obviously the 2024 season, 4-win season, 1 in conference play, and just kind of with having so many veterans on both sides of the ball, I think that the way that the season kind of unfolded, the way that the losses happened, really kind of deflated the fan base a little bit. And I would say in years prior, Maryland had done well against, Ohio State and Michigan. There were, 2021 and the Toledo Tagovailoa years. They did a good job really kind of being competitive with both of those. But there were a lot of games, post bye week where, Maryland would, be deflated in a game that you expect to win, last year, Northwestern, Rutgers. So I think, kind of going into year 7, there's definitely an expectation to win. Obviously Maryland does have a lot of young players that they're going to be leaning on this season. I think the schedule sets up well for them to kind of really get a chance to build some momentum. But I would definitely say that the way that the conference slate unfolds for Maryland is kind of the biggest thing to watch. At the end of the day, though, I think that there is, even though as much as it is about the wins and losses in year 7, I do think that there is a portion of the fan base that does still appreciate Mike Locksley. At the end of the day, this program, it's been a long time since you've had someone since Friedgen, since you've really had a coach that you can tell, bets for his program and wants to be here and really embraces the community. And so I do think that there is a segment that understands that the presence that Mike Locksley brings to the university as a whole. But, the time is now, again, year 7. It'll be interesting to see how they do in conference play.
Yeah, 100%. 7 years is a long time, and that's what programs sometimes have a problem doing. So big year for him. So kind of diving into it a little bit with the offense, there's a lot of new pieces, potentially a young freshman quarterback taking the reins. Before we dive into players, what kind of is a Maryland offense going to look like to a FAU fan who's never seen it before?
Yeah, I mean, the Mike Lochte bread and butter, the passing attack is really going to be able to kind of, lift Maryland's offense. I think there was, flashes of it last season, but, kind of inconsistencies. And I think that's why Ty Felton, the guy who was able to really, get him the ball quickly and make him, let him, make defenders miss in space. I think that was a big reason why he was able to kind of have the season that he did. So this season, Maryland does have a little bit of an experience at quarterback there. But again, the passing attack, the wide receiver room, this is probably the first year where Maryland maybe had some questions, but there's been a strong showing in camp between guys like Jalil Farouk, Octavian Smith, Ryan Manning, and then the tight end Dorian Fleming, who I expect to be a really, really big piece in the 2025 offense. So the passing attack will always be the perceived strength for Maryland's offense. I think the biggest question is, can they run the ball efficiently? And that's, offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton, that's his specialty. That's what his track record has proven that he's kind of found ways to do so. In Maryland, they have inexperienced, a couple of young guys. Nolan Ray, saw sometime last year after missing his true freshman season. DeJuan Williams came back from a torn ACL, suffered a senior year, and he's expected to be a big piece as well. Iverson Howard. So they have some young pieces, but the question is, can they find balance? That'd be the big thing. But if there's one thing to know, expect the ball in the air.
The ball will be in the air. We've seen that for sure in Maryland years past. But as you mentioned, potentially some a rising freshman, inexperience in general. Malik Washington or Justin Martin, it seems like will be the guy. Did they name Malik the guy yet? Or did I miss something? But what's the quarterback situation shaping out to be?
Yeah, I wish. I think Maryland fans, they in year 7, they would definitely prefer having the starting quarterback announced. But Mike Locksley, he's always been transparent since the day he got here. Whenever there's a quarterback battle, they will tell the team. So it'll be this upcoming Sunday, and then everyone else will officially see it when the first team offense takes the field next Saturday. So definitely would not expect an official announcement. We'll see if something does leak out, but again, would be surprised about something like that. But again, you touched on it, and Mike Locksley's been very consistent that Christian Martin, who's going into his second year, is part of that equation. They've been really high on him. They made efforts, to keep him this past offseason as well. He's really considered a valuable piece in that QB room, and then also on the roster as well, coming from a really big area that they've wanted to tap into for a while. But you mentioned it, Justin Martin coming in from UCLA, technically the most experienced in the room, but still, got one start, has played in 3 games prior to transferring into the program. So, he provides the veteran presence. He's been also a big piece in the locker room. Didn't take long for Buzz to really materialize, just how close the quarterback room got really on and off the field. But then, like you mentioned, Malik Washington, I think kind of all eyes are on him to see, whether, when he takes over that starting job, whether it is outright in week 1, whether it is by conference play. I think that will be, again, we'll see how this next week unfolds. But again, I think Malik Washington is really showing all the traits that he did in high school, where he's just extremely poised. He's mature for his age, and you can kind of see it both really on and off the field. The way that he kind of breaks down the game. I'll always point back to a quote local coach told me. It was his sophomore year. Malik Washington approached the opposing coach after the game, and that coach could tell from the types of questions that Malik Washington was asking that you could just kind of tell that the football IQ for him is a little bit different than other QBs. So that's been something that's kind of been consistent throughout the local scene, and that has translated to the college scene. So has a chance to be the first true freshman quarterback to start in the program since I believe it was 2017 in Kasim Hill. So he's lived up to expectations, and I think there's definitely a lot of high hopes for him in 2025.
It'll be interesting to see. That was the situation for FAU last year as well, the quarterback situation that ended up getting announced, but it took a while, all the way up until the last week of the season. So we shall see. But the running back room should be headlined by a returner. You mentioned that's going to be a part of the offense that'll kind of make or break things a little bit. Who's the returner, and what's to look out for with this run game?
Yeah, absolutely. The main two guys, I would say Nolan Ray is kind of the guy that he's really drawing buzz the last two off seasons, even going into the 2024 season, as someone that could probably push Roman Hemby for a bigger role. And I think kind of with Roman Hemby now at Indiana, I'd expect him to be, a big piece in that in that equation. He popped off, I believe it was a 48-yard touchdown in the season opener last year. Really, tough tackle in open space, very, very nimble, and he has the kind of the breakaway speed to that big playability. Then DeJuan Williams, he's a guy, he's up about 30 pounds, so he adds a little bit of power, but also has that home run hitting ability. You have freshman Iverson Howard, who his flash is he's a guy, he arrived in January as well, so you get a chance to get a little bit more time under his belt. Eli Mason is a guy that Mike Loxley talked about as kind of the guy that to round out the rotation as well. Then another guy, DJ Samuels, who's pretty much played linebacker prior to this camp, and he's a guy that he had that experience at running back when he was at Bergen Catholic as well. So he kind of gives the room a little bit of a power back that fans have not seen on the field just yet. So I think that the biggest question though is Maryland going to be able to establish the run on a consistent basis, and I'd say that more is attributed to conference play. In the last 2-3 seasons, Maryland has finished among the worst rushing teams in the Big Ten, especially in Big Ten play. And part of that, of course, has been on the offensive line, but they feel that they have a young running back room that has a lot of talent. Obviously, again, it hasn't translated to the in-game just yet, but can Maryland do that? Again, that like I said back in the opening statement, Pep Hamilton, this is his specialty. So he's putting an emphasis on that through spring ball and definitely into fall camp. So all eyes are whether that materializes on starting August 30th.
That'll be a big question mark. FAU rebuilt defense. Run defense last year was not a strength. They got ripped to shreds quite a bit. And so that's going to be a focal point for the defense this year, alongside rushing the passer, is stopping the run. So that'll answer some questions for one side right away in week one. That'll be something to watch for sure. Last kind of position group, won't go too deep into the offensive line, sure. But in terms of the wide receiver room, who's going to be the go-to guy in this offense? I know it seems like it's a rebuilt room. And is there anyone that, may not be a go-to guy, but is there a red zone threat, or is there other pieces to watch out for outside of a go-to guy?
Yeah, I would definitely say, the three, Jalil Farouk, can kind of feels that, I've heard, multiple times on multiple occasions, multiple settings, that he's really showed out and really kind of translated on the field. He missed spring ball, just recovering from the season-ending injury that he suffered while at Oklahoma. So this was really his first chance to really kind of prove himself, and all signs have really shown that he can kind of be that alpha dog in the room. Octavian Smith, definitely wouldn't discount him. He's drawn buzz as a guy that can really kind of break out in his final season with the program. Ryan Manning, he's a guy in his third year, is just super consistent. Even when he first arrived, you could kind of tell that it was kind of just putting it all together, that he was picking everything up well, and he was very consistent with getting extra work in inside Jones Hill House. It also worked with Miles Gray, who was a longtime wide receiver specialist, used to coach over at Good Counsel as well. And then I'd say behind them, Shalik Knotts, he's in year 4. He can be a downfield guy, just needs to showcase that consistently. And then Caleb Webb, transfer in from Tennessee, to kind of round out that room. But when it comes to pass catchers, I would definitely say that tight end Dorian Fleming is a guy who's proven as a capable blocker, but definitely a threat in the second level, red zone threat. We'll see. I think Maryland also signed a 6'7" wide receiver from Florida State. He's a junior right now, so that'll be kind of interesting to see. Maryland has not had size like that in quite some time, but Dorian Fleming, I think, is kind of that next big name to know in the passing attack.
Sounds like Dorian Fleming will be the player to watch then.
Yeah, I would say so.
And in terms of the offense, what's your biggest concern?
I would say the trenches really. I mean, all eyes are there. They returned 2 starters. Isaiah Wright, the sideline last year. They were super excited about him. Michael Hershey played 6 games, rotated in, was able to learn from Josh Kaltenberger, who is now a rookie with the Los Angeles Chargers. So and Luba, Allen Huron, both those guys are back. But again, how do they look? And especially in conference play, I think that'll be kind of interesting. But the development of the offensive line is as big of a question as the ongoing quarterback room is.
We'll see. The offensive line I feel like at every school at some point is going to be a question mark at some point. But shifting over to the defensive side of the ball, not first year coordinator, but first year at Maryland. What's the defense shaping out to look like this year? And what's your thoughts on having two new coordinators here in year 7?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the defense, Ted Monachino, he came over from UNC, has had several stints across the NFL as well. And, same could be said, a lot of the NFL flavor, especially on the offensive staff, Pep Hamilton, Hal Hunter, Gerard James, all those guys worked for the Texans as well. But defensively, what that defense is going to look like, a lot of young guys. I think the most experienced guy is going to be on the defensive line, grad transfer from Ohio, that actually has some family over from West Virginia, played at West Virginia his freshman year, and turned down West Virginia to play at Maryland to close out his college career. I'd expect him to be a big piece along the defensive line. And again, Maryland loses their top 4 contributors along the defensive line. So Cam Rice, Ian Thomas, both those guys are expected to play a big role. Sidney Stewart, I think that's a guy. He's was just named a freshman All-American earlier today, so he's expected to be a big piece. So Zahir Mathis, Trey Reddick, there's a lot of guys that kind of showed flashes, and I think among Maryland fans have kind of seen it. And now, in 2025, Mike Locksley's been very consistent that, this next wave, the freshman class, they're very talented and they're going to be a big part of the identity. So that's what you're going to see, especially in that front 7. And then I'd say in the secondary, Maryland really made the cornerback room a priority when they went into the transfer portal this offseason, through the first period. And then Jalen Husky, I think, is kind of that anchor along the back line there.
Cam Rice, you mentioned, was transferred in from Ohio. FAU will also have a star of the defensive line who transferred in from Ohio this offseason as well, CJ Doggett. So that'll be something. That's another storyline to watch out for right there. But what would you say the strength of the defense is?
Yeah, I mean, it might sound crazy. I mean, the secondary really struggled last year, but there's definitely reason to be optimistic about the secondary, and I would probably specifically point to the cornerback room. Jamari Glasker, Dante Joyner, both those guys. I had one source, Dante Joyner, described him as a pick machine. Really seems like a turnover waiting to happen. Super athletic, probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest player on defense. So he provides kind of a major upgrade at one spot. And then Jamari Glasker, a guy that played at Wake Forest for 2 seasons, really kind of broke out in 2024. I've heard, just very technically sound, just very solid. And I think both those guys do a good job just kind of leading the top of the room. They have a freshman, Jaden Ships, I've mentioned since really day one of fall camp. There's been several times where he's flashed, he's drawn praise, so I expect him to be there. But then, Kerm Humes, Braden Lee, both those guys are expected to kind of be big pieces in the secondary as well. They got a chance, and I think that's maybe the one benefit of the 2024 season, especially that cornerback room. You had so many young guys, and they get a lot of reps. And sure, it looks ugly now in year 1, but when you look at the development, the process, that's kind of where you see that benefit. So Maryland will be able to see that benefit in the rotation in 2025.
And in terms of, is there any concerns? I know obviously with a whole bunch of new pieces that there can be a lot of concerns, but to you, is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably the defensive line again. Losing 4 guys. 3 of them were seniors, and Jordan Phillips, who recorded his first sack this past weekend for the Miami Dolphins. He elected to go to the NFL draft early, so that definitely is a big question for Maryland. Cam Rice, Ian Thomas, both these guys are transferring up. So, Maryland also went out into the spring transfer portal, signed Cedric Smith, EJ Moore, Joel Starlings. So they definitely went to kind of find some pieces. But similar to the offensive line, the trenches on the defense side of the ball are kind of the biggest question for this defense.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit in terms of the game itself, what would you kind of say are the keys for Maryland to coming out strong and getting that week 1 victory?
Yeah, I would say, one, really being able to showcase that you can establish the run. I think that'll kind of alleviate, whoever the starting quarterback is. I mean, if it's Malik Washington, that's a true freshman quarterback, and you want to be able to kind of take that pressure off of a true freshman's shoulders. And then if it's a guy like Justin or Christian Martin, again, he's a guy with limited experience. So kind of being able to showcase, the complementary running back room. I didn't touch on it too much, but, the Maryland's pass rush, I think, would say has potential this season. Sidney Stewart is a really big piece. Touched on him. Trey Reddick, Daniel Wingate, an inside backer. Mike Harris. It seems like this linebacker room really. Neo Avery, Zahir Mathis. They have several pieces to kind of be disruptive in that front seven. And I think, Florida FAU, the quarterback, he has a big arm, and he's showcased that he can beat teams deep. So I think Maryland kind of being able to disrupt him and show signs that that pass rush can materialize on the field. I would say that's kind of the big two for going into this opener.
Yeah, that'll be a pass rush is something to watch out for because FAU does have some returners, but does have some new pieces on that line, including a new center. So that'll be interesting to watch. New coach of the offensive line as well, Stephen Hamby. So that's something to keep an eye on. That's always the thing when you have a G5 versus a power team is when the difference in lines. If a G5 line can keep up with that power line, it can be a game. But if the lines start to dominate, then that's when things get a little bit out of control. But Ahmed, winding down here, we do have some FAU alumni coming up making the trip. For any advice for a first-time Floridian FAU fan making the trip up to Sekou Stadium? Did I say it right? Is that how you say it? Sekou?
CQ Stadium.
CQ Stadium. Okay.
CQ Stadium. Yeah, I'd say if you get to College Park, go to Marathon Deli. It's the best place to go. You can get gyro. It's like $10-11. Best meal you'll get in College Park. Then you go inside the stadium, get yourself a crab pretzel. So have yourself a day.
Crab pretzel, man. Our co-host sometimes on here, Drew Shula, big fan of the crab fries, so I'll have to let him know about the crab pretzel. But game day wise, is it a big tailgating scene out there? What's it look like, especially opening day? I mean, I imagine it'll be pretty crazy out there.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, I wouldn't say SEC style, but I think it could be decent attendance. But yeah, I think, lot one's usually where the big tailgates are. And then obviously, you have around the Xfinity Center. That's where a lot of people tailgate as well. So just make sure you get parking pass and whatnot. Not too expensive, $20, $30 sometimes, but it could be a little bit more. But yeah, I think, that those are definitely some opportunities on campus close to the stadium that are accessible and drink a nice cold one.
There you go. And if you do that, don't get a parking pass, Uber. But Ahmed, thank you so much for taking some time for joining us here today on Inside the Borough. Where can the people find you and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us on InsideTheBlackandGold.net. That's where you can find all of our work, covering football, basketball, recruiting, non-rev. Then you can follow us on social media, Inside Black and Gold. And your go-to source for all your Maryland news.
You heard it right here. Ahmed Ghafir, the go-to guy for all Maryland news. Stay right here, folks. Garon Bach joining us for the FAU side of things as we preview Maryland FAU Week 1. For Ahmed Ghafir, I'm Robbie Lastella. We'll be right back. We are back here on Inside the Borough. Robbie Lastella now joined by Garon Bach here to give us the FAU side of things. Thank you to Ahmed Ghafir for hopping on with us to give the Maryland perspective. Garon's been out at camp every day here this summer. Garon, welcome back. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Camp's been going on. Started up classes again on Tuesday, so getting back into the swing of things as a student. Also enjoyed camp. Will say personally a little bit glad it's over. Those early mornings for me aren't going to have to keep going on, but overall fun time.
Oh, they'll still be out there. If you want to go say hi and root on from the sidelines, they'll be out there because it's mock scout week. So that's they're transitioning from just preparing for everything. Now they're going into the game week kind of thing. So that's always the time of the year when it's closing in on week one. But as camps kind of winded down, I know there's been a couple of position battles, whether that's wide receiver, some spots on the offensive line. Is there anything to you that has kind of finalized itself here, it seems like, over the last week and change, or are we still kind of up in the air in a couple of these positional battles, whether it's safeties as well, defensively, heading into week one?
I will start off with the secondary here because this is something I've been trying to keep an eye on, trying to see, once again, still mostly just individual period stuff is what we're getting to watch. So no scrimmages. So I'll be going into the Maryland game with just about the same idea of plays as what the fans will be going into here. But on the endo side of things, the secondary, it's been really fun still because they're still just mixing and matching everybody around. Even though it's mock game week, everyone's still getting moved around. I will say the biggest thing with the secondary is obviously going to be where are they going to line up. Wendell Fillard, he was just announced as one of the captains. I believe he'll be out there. I'm not sure where. I'm thinking over there on one of the corner side of things should be there, and then Zion Parrott as well. Another name. I'd say those two are the ones we've seen consistently so far out there when I do have the opportunity to. But then the offensive line was something else I wanted to touch on because that's solidified, and what I like seeing just from the Florida Atlantic perspective, Robbie, you've known this from football side of things, softball. A lot of people transfer out. And it's kind of nice to see that on the offensive line, we're seeing what I presume to be the starters coming into week one are all people that were here last season. And that's something I enjoy seeing. I'd say the biggest headline coming out of the offensive line is going to be your starter at center. And that's a younger guy. It's going to be Braden Cunningham, a redshirt freshman, is who I see starting at center, who we've heard a lot in the pressers as someone starting at center. And, you could be concerned, hey, this is a younger guy, but everyone has talked about him saying, yeah, he might be just a redshirt freshman, but he knows the calls outs. He knows what's to do. And I mean, he's got a bunch. He's got two on his left, two on his right, just guys who have experience playing for the Owls.
That's huge. I'm interested to if he ends up taking the role. He's got big shoes to fill. If he does, Fed, we're rooting for him to make that Seahawks roster. But that's a guy right there who will answer a phone call, answer a FaceTime, breakdown film. I'm sure he's got his own stuff going on now, but I'm sure Fed, if Braden is running the center, will be a guy that they can lean on for sure. But speaking of that, right, I mean, Braden's a redshirt freshman, not a freshman, but we have three freshmen potentially here on the defensive side of the ball that are all going to make an impact. Josh Roberts, Robert Lee potentially in there at linebacker, and Zion Parrott. What's your thoughts on that, Garon? I mean, in the transfer portal day and age, there's always a concern that, if you could find, an experienced DB in the transfer portal instead of relying on a Zion Parrott, or you could go find an edge rusher who maybe flamed out somewhere at a Big Ten or an SEC instead of playing a freshman in Josh Roberts. But right away, Zach Kitley here in year one has found freshmen he's liked, and it's looking like they might play a role here in week one. What do you think?
Well, overall for the freshmen, I think it's really interesting because a lot of the things that we've hit on for the defense is the fact that they are young, regardless of who's transferred in. I mean, I just finished up writing up the preview, posted it just now, I'd say about 40 minutes ago on the Owl's Nest for the defensive ends. And I mean, you look at the room, they talked about a redshirt sophomore being one of the older guys on the team. You know what? I mean, for me to hear that, it's just like, okay, there's a lot of just young guys here. And that means there might be some questions or concerns about how young they are. But like I mentioned earlier with Zion Parrott, someone who's looked really good. You saw him during spring. He's been someone that just keeps getting brought up again and again and again as just, I'm not sure if he's going to be that main guy, but he's going to play. That's what we've heard. And I would not be shocked to see him come up with those type of game-changing plays, those type of moments that the Owls are going to need down the line, especially going into week 1. And then the linebackers with Rob Lee. A couple of days ago, whenever I talked to Schwans about Lee, he mentioned a drill that Lee did, and that was something that stood out to me. And it was that he said that it was a goal line and short yardage drill, and he said that it was a Rob Lee type of day. And I feel like if we're going to be able to see Rob Lee in the linebacker core, someone who's going to be able to stand out, a young guy, I like hearing those type of things, short yardage, goal line, those moments where you can have those point swings, those moments in a game where you can cause 7 points to 3 points, or maybe even cause a 4th and goal and turn the ball over. And then finally on that list of names, I mean, it's going to be Josh Roberts, the guy I talked to today. And Roberts has just been brought up, and that's something that ties into the edge position, which I'm not sure if you're going to ask me about it yet. I went through some of your questions. I forgot some of them already, but the edge position is kind of odd because Roberts has a great shot to be a starter. That was what was brought up today. They said that Roberts is in a role to where he could maybe go into next Thursday and be listed as one of the starters going into the Maryland game. And that, I mean, this is a position on the defensive edges that it's kind of like a quartet of guys will make up those 2 slots. So with Roberts being one of those guys, a freshman, he's just been that good during camp. He's really athletic. He's got a lot of speed. I'm excited to see him. And, we hopefully he'll stay here for longer than just this season. I hate saying those things, but you see a good freshman, you're like, well, dang, it's going to be fun to have him now.
It's always a concern, but, FAU's got history developing defensive linemen and putting them into the pros. Trey Hendrickson, if you look at ESPN, probably hear about him. So that could be Josh Roberts. Josh, if you watch this, just keep that in the back of the old noggin for future reference. But, hey, whatever happens. I'm just excited to see what can be done here in year 1. But, yeah, I agree with you. Having young talent is good. You never know if they're going to stay, but it nevertheless, to have guys that you feel like you can develop yourself, that's what you want. And so I'm excited to see some of these guys get on the field right away. Robert Lee, he's the guy who's been here now for a couple of months. I believe he was here in the spring as well. So that's a guy who this linebacker room needs, future guys to develop. As we saw, it's a brand new unit here this year as well. So I'll be interested to see how these guys kind of shape up. And there's other freshmen too. The wide receiver room is so deep, but I'm really high on Jade Card and Michael Calix. I don't think we'll see them this year, but there's just so much talent as a freshman, which I'm excited to see. But kind of shifting gears a little bit towards Maryland, if you had to kind of offensively and defensively kind of pick a strength for both sides of the ball. Maybe there's multiple. Maybe you feel like that's a multifaceted thing. But offensively and defensively, what would you say a strength is on each side of the ball for FAU?
Well, I'll keep it pretty simple on the offense. I think it's going to be the O-line and the tight ends. Those are the 2 that I have a lot of faith in. I spent time watching some of the tight ends during I believe it was 2-point drills today is what they were working on. I saw Mike Kirk get up, dunk the ball after scoring. If you saw that over on the Owls Nest X page, wow. But I have been really impressed, and from what I've heard and from what's been going on with just the tight end room overall, it's a lot of experience. A lot of the guys have played, and just to put it simply, they know ball. And one of the questions I brought up was, is it different playing in the air raid? Has it made you have to evolve or adapt? And for a lot of them, they've just said, yeah, a little bit, but we're just here to be here. But Kirk looks to be one of the guys that have been really good, has been kind of put himself on a radar here of he should be someone we can expect pass block, catch, and then alongside Kirk is going to be alongside Kirk in the tight ends room. It's going to be Reed McKiskey, and that's someone else who's doing the exact same thing. Someone else who those two together alongside the offensive line, I feel like pass protection might be all right, but also run protection as well. I feel really confident in the Owls blocking going into week 1. And then on the defensive side of things, I'm also going to keep it on the line with the defensive line. I feel really good in them as well. I mean, the interior looks to be really good when you look at the defensive tackle position. I mean, dude, you've got Bryce Langston, CJ Doggett. Those are 2 captains, 2 leaders of the team, 2 guys that have looked really good. And then, I mean, even behind them, you've still got Anichi Sledge, and then you've got Barber as well. And so I think those 4 on the interior, the run game especially, if it comes down to it, I mean, we've seen Maryland in a quarterback battle here. I don't know how their running backs have been looking too far because a lot of it has just been highlighting on their quarterbacks. But when it comes down to, like I've mentioned, those short yardage, those 3rd and shorts, 4th and short situations, if the Owls can get off the field here, those are going to be the guys who are going to do it. The lines being the strength. You love to see that. It hasn't been that way in a couple of years, but if that's the case, that is awesome. I know there's some people, some big people out there who want to see the FAU lines get back to doing what they used to do. And if that can happen against Maryland, that's a good sign. But obviously, I mean, not everything can be sunshine and roses. What kind of concerns you a little bit, whether it's potential depth at running back? That's what concerns me. But what concerns you, Garon, heading into week 1? Depth at running back I can see as a concern, but I don't want to regret saying this, but to me, I just feel like for those 3, and Sands, Terrell, and Shields Dutton, those 3 together, just they look to be really good. Now, if all 3 of them can stay healthy, that's a major question, because if you rely on those 3, then you have to go back, and we've not really seen a lot of the Owls' depth roles in the running back position. But I would say the biggest concern to me, not because they have shown to be concerning, but I just haven't really seen them play, is going to be the secondary. I'm intrigued on how they'll roll out there. How will Schwenn's change around? How will Dewhurst be out there bringing in the formations, the coordinator? I mean, are we going to see a lot of rotation during the game, or are we going to have some solid pieces? That's something I'm just not too sure on yet, and that's why I'm a little concerned by it.
I guess we'll see. The rotating it can be concerning, but that's also a good thing. I'm kind of with the running back depth being concerning. It's just because really they only brought in 1 freshman. He's a very talented freshman, and if he gets to play right away and he's good, so be it. But I don't know. I guess I like numbers, and I just seeing only 1 get added, that just concerns me. Defensively, I don't know if it's a concern. I'm interested to see though how the pass rush works out. I'm interested to kind of see how the run defense works out, even though that's your biggest strength. Last year it was not. The run defense definitely was a bit concerning. I am hoping you are correct, because as our guy Ahmed mentioned to us, the key he believes for Maryland to be successful offensively in this game is they're going to have an inexperienced quarterback, whether it's Malik Washington, who's a true freshman. They have a sophomore in there as well, and a redshirt freshman. So whoever's getting the job isn't that experienced. So his key is going to be, can they get a running game going alongside that? Now they have a running back in Ray, who he was there last year as their backup running back at about 400 yards and change. So he's going to be the starter. Can our run defense come out of the gates hot? We saw it be solid against Michigan State right away last year. It was spotty. But if they can come out and stall their run game, that will be, according to Ahmed, that will put a major wrench in their game plan. You said you're confident in it, but I'll ask again just to confirm, maybe do you think our run defense will be able to kind of stymie Maryland's run game a little bit?
And you know what, Robbie, you know better than I do, I'm sure, on the optimism side of things. You gotta live life on the wild side here, and I don't want to be too biased here, but I will say that I strongly do believe that when it comes down to the linebacker core alongside with the defensive line, that, you know, unless Maryland just strictly goes, we're running the ball every single play and we're just going to keep doing it until you're exhausted, which will also throw a wrench in their plan of, you got to keep guys healthy. Yeah. And with FAU, the offense for Florida Atlantic, as long as it works out the way we're expecting it to, I can't remember who said it today, but one of the coaches said that the offense is a 2-minute drill every single play. And so whenever you talk about the Florida Atlantic offense, you're going, okay, yeah, they got to hurry up, but they're not going to be on the field as much. If you got to keep your team and you're running the ball and you got to keep the ball 35, 40, 45 minutes in a game, you're going to wear yourself out. But that also goes towards the Owls as well. And that's why I mentioned the 2 deep on the interior, because it's not just your main guys here that are going to be the leaders in Langston and Doggett. I really like Sledge a lot here. He seems to be the guy that's going to fill in the short yardage situations when called upon. He mentioned, well, Langston shared that for the whole group, they all work together, but one of the guys that was highlighted as a run guy was Sledge. And that's why I truly believe that just because we don't have to focus on the top 2 guys and that the Owls can go to 3-4 guys on the interior of the line here, they should have a decent shot. And that's the reason why I feel confident in it.
Rotating is huge. I mean, having depth is definitely what, that was one of the strengths last year, I guess you could say, was there was depth. A lot of times it didn't work out, but having depth is definitely going to be key against a Big Ten team. And we saw that work in the first game of the year, then just went downhill from there. But, you mentioned you like the linebackers as well. Ahmed mentioned the big thing for the Maryland offense in terms of the pass game is going to be their tight end Dorian Fleming. He transfers in from Georgia State, I believe, either Georgia State or Georgia Southern. I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but nevertheless, he played last year, had about 500 yards and a couple touchdowns. He is expected to be a big contributor in their offense. Considering tight end and FAU's offense is probably not what they're going against a lot in practice. Now, I'm sure they're changing things up for Scout Week here, but is that a concern at all that maybe, a star tight end is something that maybe, could give them issues, or are we going to, is there a path to being successful against that as well?
Well, overall, the linebacker core seems to be solid for FAU. There's still some questions around who's going to be your second, third guy when it comes to depth reasons for the linebacker core. So I would say that when it comes to having to go up against a solid tight end, that is something that stands out to me because of the fact that FAU, when it comes to the linebacker core, a lot of them are new. That's something we've got to remember, is that we've just not seen a lot of them. But I will say that if we were just to focus on 2 guys, Stolsky, Leonhardt Jr., I think those 2 have just been around the game enough to where if they've got to go up against a star tight end, maybe someone who can, as we mentioned with our tight ends for FAU, but you're going up against someone that can kind of do it all, and you may have to focus on everything. I believe those 2 together have the kind of wherewithal to know what to do in situations. Now, I will add that I'm not too confident in the remainder because, we just can't say that we've seen everything. But with Johnson, Lampkin, those are some guys that might be some depth pieces as well. I just think that once we see what happens is what happens. But with the top 2 guys, I mentioned Hart, Stolsky, I think those 2 should be the guys that if we could, in a perfect world, just say those 2 versus this tight end, I think it would be a pretty even matchup. So that'd just be one I'd like to see play out on the field.
We will see it play out on the field, indeed, just a week away. But in terms of Maryland's defense, one of the biggest strengths he believes will be their cornerbacks. After all this offseason of the offense, of Easton Messer, Caden Veldkamp, of everything this offense can do, they're going to face a team right away in week one where it's believed to be the strength of the defense is those corners. Are we confident right away that Easton, Quincy Brown, J.R. Wilson, are going to be able to create that separation? Or, could there be some bumps in the road in this game?
That I'm going to have to drop my optimism on here, not because I don't think the wide receiver room is that good for FAU. I mean, dude, we've got Platt was one of the names you didn't mention.
Yeah.
Racine, one of the names. I mean, dude, you got 5, 6, 7 guys that are going to be the guys that we'll most likely see go out there. And the thing with them is that a lot of them have played those roles of a couple snaps in a game, but how are they going to do throughout a full game? And like I said, I've not been able to see scrimmages, but you were there. You were there with me when we saw that Messer connection, dude.
Yep.
And I mean, I think overall for how many targets there are in the wide receiver room, my logic here on this is Veldkamp is someone who was a offensive player of the year last season, Conference USA. He's got to be able to find separation. I mean, as a quarterback, that's just something you look for, it. And that's why I do think it's going to be a hard challenge. That there's a reason why you go on the road, play a Big Ten team first game. You don't go in there expecting to win. You go in there expecting to upset some fans, some people. And I will say a Big Ten secondary, Power 4 secondary, one that has suffered some of their losses with transfers, but also got a few good transfers in. That's another one that I would like to be optimistic and say the wide receiver core, the right route trees look good. And that's the reason why I brought up the tight ends earlier, is because I think if we can try to put an emphasis on, hey, all 5 guys out here that are going to be running routes, if you send all 5, someone's going to end up being open. And that's why I truthfully believe that the Owls should have a good shot passing the ball. But, I mean, you also mentioned the run game, and I guess I'll go ahead and dive into that. I think once we can get someone, once we find out who is that main running back, because we've heard the three-headed monster, but it's been with the hot hand. And Shields Dutton has been someone who I was expecting to be the third slot. He's been someone who's been looking like he's been moving up maybe towards that 1-2 in some scenarios. So I'm excited to see how this goes, because every single position player has hands. Every single one can catch the ball. And while the secondary is going to be a concern while Maryland secondary is going to be a concern for the wide receivers for Florida Atlantic, I think it just depends on who came prepared that day. And we'll see that on 30.
Yeah, we will. Winding down here, I will say something that gives me a bit of positivity. Obviously, Easton is Easton, but in terms of guys on the outside, right? Assad is gone. Assad Wasim will go, guys. I didn't name first. Assad Wasim has gone against DBs at the Big 12 level in Colorado. Didn't play a ton, but played in practice there. Had the talent to go there. And it's just like, for example, obviously talent can be at any level. So, and in terms of, look at Quincy Brown. He was at TCU and had touchdowns the year they went to the national championship. And J.R. Wilson was at Virginia. He played. So I think there's a chance that they're able to create separation and do their thing here in week 1 against Maryland. Last year we saw the offense get stymied against Michigan State. That was last year, and I've been talking about last year, and I think that might be the last time I need to talk about last year. Week 1, what do you think we need to do to be competitive in this game? I mean, what to you is going to be the kind of key factors that FAU needs to complete to stay in this game?
Well, I hate that we already brought it up so early in our version, well, in our part of the pod, but it's it's going to be the run game on the defensive side. Can you stop Maryland's run game? It has the ball. I trust in our secondary enough. I have my questions about them, but I trust in there enough when you've got an inexperienced quarterback in there who's trying to make those reads against a front, a defensive front that has a lot of experience, some speed off the end, two physical guys in the middle. I think that the Owls defensive front is going to be the biggest difference in this game. I think when it comes time for that's going to be Maryland. Make them have to pass that ball, and then that's when you put it on the secondary, which, like I said, is a little concerning me, but not because of the fact that they don't look good or they haven't looked good. It's just the fact that we just don't know how the rotation is going to work, who's going to be out there, what's going to happen. But that's the good news for Turks. I don't, but they do.
Yeah, that's a good thing. As long as they know what's going on, me and you can be left in the dust. But yeah, I agree. Obviously, the line's going to be important, but last year they got lulled into a sense of complacency. I know I said I wouldn't mention last year, but I draw comparisons. But anyway, I don't want to. If Maryland's struggling offensively, there's no reason why our offense needs to kind of get sucked into that lull of it doesn't need to be back and forth. I want to see FAU's offense go out there and be explosive right away. Obviously, I want to see some plays stretch in the field, just establish that offense that we've heard all summer about. Because I think the one thing, right? I don't think there's many FAU fans out there that are going into this game, oh yeah, they have to win. If they don't, the season's cooked. But I think the one thing that will leave people a bit concerned leaving that game is if the offense last time looks like last year. If we're putting up 100 total yards, we're getting sacked left and right, and there's no run game. If it just looks atrocious, then that's concerning. I just want to see it look pretty. Everything we've heard about the Zach Kidley offense is that it's going to be fun. It's going to be something that fans look forward to. Wins or losses aside, just give me some points, make it fun, and get us back home for FAMU and FIU. My eyes are set on. Get to, at worst, 2-1 going into that Memphis game. All bets are off. Get some momentum. But that's just my thoughts on it. Garon, final thoughts here. Is there anything you're looking out for here in the final week and change before we head to Maryland, whether that's at the press conferences, hearing something from the coaches, or is there any positions you're keeping a big eye on here over the final week?
You were hitting on about the Zach Kidley offense. I just want to put it out there that there have been 3 words that keep getting brought up, or 3 statements that keep getting brought up, regardless of player, coach, if it's Kidley himself, and those words have been opportunity, role, and aggressiveness. You got to know your role. You have an opportunity every single time, and you're always going to play aggressive. And that's the reason why you brought up that whole lull thing, just kind of being complacent. I truthfully believe, I strongly believe, the Owls, we may throw a few interceptions. There might be some miscues, things like that. I say this from my heart. I believe this. Everyone else watching, I think that if Florida Atlantic has the opportunity to score, 5 seconds left in the first half, 10 minutes to go in the third, doesn't matter. They're going to send the ball down there. I believe in that wholeheartedly. But going into the final, 10 days, 9 days left of just pressers, seeing everything. The thing I'm looking forward to is who are going to be your guys on special teams. That was the last thing I've been looking at. We've got a good idea with punt return with Messer. I believe that's that guy. He can do it all. But I'm excited to see kickoff return. I'm excited to see who are going to be those 2 guys back there. I mean, early in camp we heard, hey, it could be one of these wide receivers, could be one of these starting running backs, and that was something Kitley coached. But that's really the last thing I'm focused on, is trying to see. I mean, obviously, we'll know when the roster comes out he'll be out there, and we can answer a lot more questions. But with kickoff return, punt return, special teams, I'm excited to see how that plays out. I'm excited to see who's put back there, and I'm intrigued on how will that impact the aggressiveness factor. Are we going to see if there's 15 seconds left return and try to get 40, 30 yards and put yourself in field goal range? But that's about all I've got now.
There you go. Special teams, you can't forget about it. It's one of the most important parts of the game. It's one of the most, I'll be reading your positional previews for special teams if no one else will be. If there are no fans of special teams, I am dead now. But I'm looking forward to these final couple of days here before week one, and I'm really looking forward to the start of the season. It's been a lot of anticipation. I've had 3 head coaches during my, well, really 4, but I wasn't around when Lane first came to FAU, but I was here for the beginning of the Taggart era, the beginning of the Herman era. This one to me feels like the most exciting. I probably would have said that, last year or whenever we were hiring Herman. I would have said, "Oh yeah, this doesn't matter. More exciting."
Doesn't matter.
But you know what? This is thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Inside the Burrow. If you're watching this close to the Maryland game, make sure to get your tickets and get up and go. That's what I say. If you're a fan, if you're of FAU and you're in the Northeast, which I know a lot of people are, get up and go. We need a good crowd attendance there. We need to be rowdy. Ahmed wasn't confident it'll be a rowdy sellout. He said it'll be a good attendance, but it won't be a sellout. So, if we go in there and we're loud and make some noise, could make an impact. We'll see. But folks, follow along on FAU Owl's Nest for all the coverage. Garon, what's your Twitter at? And where can
I'll figure out how to put it in here one day, but it's at gbach2003. Find me on X, Twitter. You can also follow Garon Bach Media on Instagram, even though it's mostly just what's being posted on the Owl's Nest. But hey, I appreciate the follow.
Yeah, there you go. So make sure to stay tuned with Garon. He'll have you covered for everything you need to know heading into week one. To Ahmed, our guest from Maryland, thank you very much. To all the Owl's Nest fans, we thank you. For Garon Bach, I'm Robbie Lastella. We'll see you next time.